Hi everyone, good evening. Hope you're all doing well. And today we're going to talk about something very important that's part of our married life, that's part of our partnership, that's part of our coupling. So that's of course, the sexual health and everything. But as such, the pelvic pain that women sometimes go through, and sometimes it's mild, sometimes it's chronic, sometimes it's severe. And today we have someone who has been herself a warrior of vaginismus, and she takes care of all these things. And she she has an Insta handle where they say pain.free.intimate. That's like she helps women to come out of this pain and handle vaginismus and everything connected to it. So before further ado, I think more than me speaking about her, I want her to introduce herself, because she has experienced that and now she's helping a lot of other women to come out of it. So let's just call upon Catherine, see what she's going to teach us today, what we're going to learn today from her. Hi.
Hi, how are you? It's good to see you again.
Yeah, same here. It's been long. We've been discussing about this for a very long time, and then something or other comes up, and we're not able to have this conversation, this chat at all, right? How have you been holding up throughout this COVID and everything? How are things at your space?
Pretty well. I would say there have been difficulties, of course, with lifestyle changes with people.
Yeah,
The fear is absolutely real. And
yeah,
at the same time, some silver linings have come out of it also.
yeah,
I feel
yeah.
like we've got to spend a lot more quality time with ourselves and with our loved ones. So that's been
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, very true, very true. So let's get started. I'm super excited for this. So before we get into the topic, I would want you to introduce yourself and what you do, what has been your journey, so that a lot of people come to know, and let's normalize all these things, right? That it's no more a taboo or a shushu thing. Yeah? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. Well, my name is Katrin, and I never thought I'd be here in these conversations speaking about painful sex and vaginismus. That was not something I foresaw as my future. But I'm so glad I'm here because this is the most fulfilling work I have ever done in my life. Seeing people heal emotionally and physically and overcome pelvic pain for good, putting it in the past, and just creating a fresh slate for the future. I used to be. And after that, am I breaking up a little bit?
Yes, yes, you are.
Okay, hopefully the connection gets a little better.
Yeah.
And after that, I decided, there's more to it. I really wanted to help people on a more personal level. And so I resigned from the corporate life and I kind of started thinking, well, what can I help people with? And then it hit me right in the face. Like, of course, vaginismus. You had experienced this for about 6 years, and there is so little information out there, unfortunately,
Uh,
especially at the time. So much has improved these days, but at the time it was like this black hole. So yeah, that is what I do now. I help people on this journey to creating a pain-free and intimate life.
Yeah, you're just doing so amazingly well. And it's also, I sometimes feel it's not just about you having that information right now, but also the kind of impact that you're able to do it, because this is something so connected to a person deep inside, right? So that touching that deep chord and making that impact. And when I read your feedbacks, when I read your stories, it feels so heartwarming that to see people working in these areas, it just gives so much of confidence and so much of hope that we are working for a better future. It really feels that way. So keep it going. So let's get started. So let's get our basics straight. So what is this pelvic pain that we talk about? What are the causes, or what are the general causes that it starts? Is it like, does it happen towards the puberty, or is it always the same, or it starts only when you're married, or when you're dating, or when you're having that intercourse? When does it happen actually, or what are the causes of it?
Yeah, great question. And when it comes to pelvic pain, there are many different types of experiences and body responses, physical manifestations that the body goes through. And I myself experienced the body response of vaginismus. There's also, pelvic pain that stems from vulvodynia, vulvar vasculitis, there's endometriosis and such. But let's zero in on vaginismus because I'm a big believer that we can only talk about and share information about things that we have personally experienced. And so when it comes to vaginismus, the causes are really many, and they could happen at different times of our lives. Essentially, what it is an event or a circumstance or a memory that was registered as traumatic in the body that created a protective mechanism. The body itself recognized sexual acts and perhaps particularly penetration. It's possible that no other sexual acts are impacted, but penetration in particular gets registered in the nervous system as something dangerous. And so the body itself goes into a very beautiful mechanism in many ways, right? There's a lot of healing that comes with recognizing that it is in fact trying to help us out. It has been on our team with the attempt to protect us. And what this mechanism is the tightening, the contraction of the pelvic floor muscles so as to create a wall, basically, so as to protect us, right? To create this contraction and be like, no, danger. I don't want anything in my space that is going to be painful, that's going to hurt. Yeah. So that is the nature of the body response. It is the contraction. Sometimes it can lead to a feeling of there being a wall at your vaginal opening where nothing can come in whatsoever. And other times penetration can be partially possible, but incredibly painful. And I like to use the imagery of literally a searing hot knife being inserted in your body. It is very, very painful. And perhaps people who are watching might be able to relate exactly to that explanation. But as for what causes it, it could be a slew of things. And I have a post on my Instagram with 11 different reasons. One of them is some sort of physical injury. On my blog post about one of my personal stories, I write about an injury related to a bike. When I was younger, I fell on a metal rod of a bike, and that registered in my childhood as, the pelvic floor is a source of pain because of this particular injury. But this could also be a medical injury, a really traumatic gynecological exam, pelvic exam. Also, it could be shame related to sex in any way, shape, or form. We have been taught perhaps that sex is dirty. Sex is only after a certain time in our life, like after getting married, for example, which creates so much confusion in our body. It's like we expect our body to flip a switch after 20 plus, 30 plus years of the rule in our nervous system being like, sex is bad, to boom, you get a ring on your finger and you're supposed to allow for it now. You're supposed to surrender to it. It doesn't quite work that way. Yeah. There's a whole other bunch, fear of the masculine in some way. If there was a masculine figure or whatever gender your partner is, that sort of symbol in your life that was perceived to be dangerous in your childhood, that could be a reason for vaginismus to develop. Really, I can go on forever on this.
Yeah, like we don't connect, right? Our childhood experiences, how it shows up in our adult relationships, we can't even imagine. It's like that. And like coming from a very patriarchal and a taboo society, people don't connect to the fact that what we see, what we observe, what our body is actually being held during their childhood has so much impact on how your relationships when you are in 20s and 30s are.
Yeah, definitely. Our childhood has shaped our reality. And as kids, everything that we observe in our life is registered as something that we created. which is so interesting. Let's say we observe our parents fighting, which was an example in my life. That child observing that fight, that struggle, is automatically creating an association of like, what did I do to cause this? This is my fault. How can I be better to make my parents happy? Can I be the good girl? Can I get all the high grades? Can I make my dad proud by X, Y, and Z so that he can stay? Right? Even that dynamic of parental conflict has a very big impact on our nervous system and us basically living in a perpetual state of fear where you can't get enough sleep as your parents are fighting at night. So you're breathing shallowly into your lungs, into your chest rather than into your belly. All of those have an impact on the pelvic floor tightness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you relate to any of that?
So many. Childhood trauma has so much impact on my sexual life. But trust me, when I had experienced it, when I had personally went through that, I didn't have right resources to tell me that it is because of this. This is the reason that you need to fix, or you need to heal that. You need to come out of that trauma, and then it will show up better in your married life or your adult relationship, whatever you say. So that direction in itself was so missing. And actually started reading about this, then I realized, oh, for long I was cursing myself for not being the best partner. For long I've been understood, like even if your partner supports, even if your partner doesn't, you have that commitment, right? It feels so unfair for the other person who's in the relationship with you.
It is true. It definitely feels unfair to the other person. And of course, on the flip side, everybody is fighting their own battles and there are personal issues that each person goes through. So I find that a key to success is this commitment to self-healing, right? And in one of your posts, I think you had said, you don't always have to do everything together, right? You don't always have to go through things together. And that goes to show the very important message of, yes, there is a sense of togetherness and healing together. And I have found there's also an incredible responsibility of both partners doing their own self-healing so they can show up in a relationship fully and completely and hopefully from a place of wholeness, right? We're always kind of working towards that. And I believe that we're all perfect innately. You know, you can kind of go on the flip side to say nobody is perfect, but I like to go towards the direction of everybody's innately perfect and still we're learning and growing.
Yeah, so nicely. Have you experienced, because since both of us have been through this journey in our own ways, have you had this reason where it impacted your mental health as well? Mental health aspect of your life? Like stress, anxiety, whatever.
Oh, absolutely. I feel like when it comes to stress, stress is often one of the contributing factors to the experience of vaginismus in the first place. And vaginismus itself is the cycle of pain, but also stress is the cycle. And as we add on to the layers, we create a circle really that exacerbates itself. So stress caused vaginismus in some way, and vaginismus caused more stress. And hence it's a vicious thing to deal with because you really need to break the cycle and it's incredibly hard to do so. Mentally, what I see with what I have seen in my own life and what I see with people that I support is very much an impact on our sense of confidence and our sense of self-worth in the world. Stress and anxiety are kind of their own more intense emotion. And self-worth and confidence are sort of these foundational parts of ourselves that definitely suffer. I remember not pursuing relationships, in my single life because I was afraid, right? How am I going to approach this? When do I tell my partner? And we could definitely talk about this too in the dating scenario and then in the relationship scenario, all of the challenges that come up. And so we halt from being our authentic selves. Those
Yeah.
parts of us that are playful, that are fun, that are out there, maybe we simmer those down because of attention. And if it attracts sexual attention, then we put ourselves in a risky situation, whether for
Yeah.
experiencing pain and pushing through it, or whether for being a disappointment, right? A perceived disappointment to another person.
Yeah.
And that hurts. It really, really does.
That's-
Yeah, it's not a fun game to play.
Yeah. I think we take it at times too lightly, right? So so you do one-to-one consultations, you do group and everything. So what have you observed in people, like in which level? So when they come, is it just mild, or is it like very chronic? So if something is happening to somebody, when should they consult a therapist like you, or when is the right time to make it serious? Like, it's a serious issue to go and consult and get it fixed. How do I know that?
Great question. Of course, the best case scenario is as soon as possible. And that is simply because of that same cycle of pain that we talked about. When we have one painful experience, we tend to anticipate another painful experience. And so we anticipate it, we brace for it, we create further tightening response because now we're looking for that pain where we know it's coming. And so we tighten even further, and then we experience it again. And so the longer we keep experiencing these painful events, right, literal pelvic pain, whether it's penetrative sex or whether it's emotional pain related to vaginismus, it compounds onto each other. And the body response strengthens because our body tries to protect us even more. So ideally, you want to reach out for some sort of guidance with somebody who understands, right? That's very important. So many people reach out for guidance, but unfortunately get connected with somebody who doesn't quite understand. And that actually compounds onto the pain even more because now we think, well, holy, nobody gets me. Like, I'm trying to get help. I'm doing all the right things, but it's like, it's not helpful. So what I typically see, even though this is the ideal scenario, is that I typically see people reaching out for help basically when they're pretty much at their wits' end and they realize, wow, I've got to take the reins here. I've got to make a change and I really need this. And sometimes that gets sparked by avoidance of pain. And sometimes that gets sparked by a desire for pleasure. And I believe, and I think it's Tony Robbins who teaches this particular concept. He says we always either move towards pleasure or away from pain. And so often with vaginismus, we are moving away from pain. But the piece about especially those people that I work with one-on-one that are all in, whether in groups or one-on-one, but particular one-on-one, I find that there's this drive for pleasure also. And often it's also for conceiving a child and starting a family, if that is this person's desire in their relationship.
Yeah.
So how incredible to know that sometimes this beautiful piece of life is the motivating factor. And sometimes in some cases, by the end of our 4 months together, that person, that woman is pregnant and is expecting a child. And this is the most fulfilling, like heartwarming thing of what I do now. It's really one of my favorite parts.
Yeah. Yeah, I can sense it. I can sense it being a coach, by being a marriage and relationship educator. When people come and tell me that the conversations that we have had has made me understand my partner more better, or given that respect and space for my partner, it really feels good. It really feels healthy. I think that's the best thing, and I think that's something that motivates us each day to do something better in this space. So, uh, coming to that. So, how long does it generally take to heal if somebody is starting out? Of course, it's very subjective. It differs with person to person, the rigorousness with which they try and everything. But how long, on an average?
Yeah, great question. And like you said, it really depends. And I have, well, my personal story is that it took 6 years from the first time that I tried to have penetrative sex and it just didn't work. There was no penetration whatsoever, to the time I was having pain-free penetrative sex was 6 years. Now, this is because I had very little guidance. And I believe that part of my story needed to happen this way, where, for example, I hadn't seen a pelvic floor physiotherapist. In fact, I didn't know that this sort of medical professional existed. And this is the most relevant professional when it comes to the physical healing journey itself. But of course, emotional healing is the foundation, is very important. But other people that I have worked with have had pain-free penetrative sex 1.5 months. This is one example in which we needed to stop working together when COVID hit. So, we stopped our calls, but the woman I was working with had a lot of the guidance already that I provided, including this last little piece of guidance where the dilating process could start because she was ready for it. And a few weeks later, I got that email to say, oh my God, we had pain-free penetrative sex. So that's possible. Sometimes it's 4 months at the end of our time together that happens. Sometimes it's more than 4 months. And that means that maybe at the end of 4 months, they are on dilator 3 or 4 out of their goal size 6 or 7. And they're feeling good. They're feeling confident that it's going to happen for me at the perfect time. I'm at peace with it now. I know exactly what to do to get to this last stage. And that's essentially the average that I have seen based on my approach. Now, the other very important piece I want to mention is that at the end of those 6 years for me, I had pain-free penetrative sex. Yes, I did. Yet, I had not stepped into my sexual confidence. I had not found this authentic part of my identity as a sexual being that I could actually embrace and celebrate and be proud of and really be my own joyful, fun, playful, adventurous self in the bedroom or outside the bedroom, right? Yeah. And so the piece that I find is missing in many ways from our healing journey is exactly this part. That's why I incorporated now, even before touching dilators, even before getting into this penetrative act, because we need to get excited about our identity as a sexual being to actually understand what our desires are, what our wants are, what our dislikes are, and to be okay with setting boundaries for those, to be okay with exploring the things we want to explore and to really embrace pleasure in our bodies. So when we talk about overcoming vaginismus, the way that I see it, it is way more important to talk about creating an amazing sex life without limitation, rather than just being a receptive partner to sex, to penetrative sex.
Yeah.
We don't want to just be accepting our partner's penis, or if your partner doesn't have a penis, whatever it is in our body. We want to love it, right? We want to have fun with it and just experiment with our partner if that's what we desire. So, that's a little segue there that I thought was worth mentioning.
I think that the sense of self-celebration, that's a key here, because that's when you start to connect with your inner self, your body, and that's when the healing also, I think, becomes easier. The healing also tends to be more soothing, and it's no more vaginismus and an issue that you need to be worried about, more of a milestone that you've crossed and you need to celebrate it, right? I love your stories where you dance and then and the music is just soothing and you have pet around who's looking around you, and it's just so nice. The way it's so inspiring for me that a simple casual movement of your body gives so much of comfort.
Yeah, thank you. I think this is a really key piece to showcase, because the healing journey is about us coming to a place of connection with our body. Our body, in many cases for us, has sort of been this thing that had been a source of confusion or pain or shame or guilt, as though we weren't allowed to indulge in the sensations, in the physical sensations that this physical body gives us access to. And the case for me is that there was a lot of shame related to touching my genitals in particular. But also, if you were to look at the bigger picture, I hadn't really thought that, you know, having my hand right here and being able to touch my skin in a way where the only purpose was pleasure, for me, was actually something worthwhile to do in our lives. It was always about productivity, efficiency, taking the next step, checking that next item on the to-do list, right? Accomplishment, accomplishment, accomplishment. So with this step-by-step, beautiful approach to connecting to our body, we really make friends with it on a whole new level. And we start to celebrate and we start to just enjoy pleasure for its nature. And we're all deserving innately of it.
So true, so true, so true. Just running behind something, right? Constantly, like either trying to please somebody, either trying to showcase that you are the best. And like, there is no space to halt and pause and slow down a little. And so much is there in slowing down, but we don't do that.
Yeah. Can you relate to this piece in your own life, this high performance mentality, achievement, 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 pleasing others?
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, to actually be saying, my parents weren't somebody who were constantly pushing us to achieve. So in that sense, I was never pushed. But the sense of peer pressure, even though the family was very liberal, the family didn't push me. But seeing everybody around me growing in their career, growing so much in their personal life, having babies after babies, and then so much is there. And then when you just hold back yourself and see what is happening with your life, you question yourself. Then there is a self-doubt. Then there is questioning of your self-worth. Until you realize that there are things that are out of your control as well. So, yeah, it took a lot of time. It took a lot of time and a lot of nights that were crying, a lot of sleepless nights. It did take a mental toll, actually. But then when I realized what it was and how much is the control that I have and how much is just a healing journey that it takes its own course of time, then I realized, then I knew my boundaries, then I understood what is possible from my end and what is not possible. So that was, the realization was very nice, even though it came a little late for me. So it was nice. When it happened, it was like, yeah, finally. It was that feeling. You get that?
Yeah. Yeah. And beautifully said on the piece about control. A lot of this healing journey is about us feeling like we are safe to relinquish control. And when we were kids, the survival strategy that we picked up to be safe was, I can only be safe when I'm in control of things, when I know what I'm doing today, when I know what I'm doing tomorrow, when I have my plans for the future. Whatever it was, education-wise or personal life-wise, it was this like holding on to control. And vaginismus itself is the body guaranteeing a sense of control for you. It's literally, it's saying no for you and speaking your truth in that way. And sometimes that is a very profound piece that really we have an inner no that we had never spoken. But also it guarantees the sense of control. So what we know as this foundational piece is to find safety and surrender. And that's where pleasure comes into play. That's where down-regulating the nervous system comes into play, finding this place of rest, breathing into the belly. It's slowing down. Like, it's really finding that safety and surrender.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do you think that a partner can help the person who's going through this? Because partnership makes a lot of difference here. It can turn things to worse, or it can bring out the best out of you. It can be
definitely. And so often the grass is greener on the other side, right? So people who are in partnership, in some days of that trek, that roller coaster, they may wish, I wish I was single so that I don't have to deal with the pressures that are innately there while in partnership. And, you know, sometimes I hear people say, well, my partner isn't pressuring me. Like, they're being amazing, they're being patient. And that is beautiful. I love when this is the case for people. And still, that pressure exists because it's almost like a self-inflicted pressure from the nature of knowing that there's a person waiting for you to heal. There's somebody else who is dependent on you to heal.
Yeah.
People who are single may wish, I wish I was in partnership so that I can have this person supporting me. I can have this body physically, right, that I can work with through some of these somatic experiencing practices, which require some sort of external person and touch to play with. But let's say you're in partnership. One of the most important things is for the communication to be open and honest, and for vulnerability to be welcomed. Vulnerability is a sign of strength. We think of it as a weakness, but what's key is that this communication channel is open so both people feel like they can safely express themselves. And when it comes to specific support, it's actually really important also to ask a lot of questions. So not only, right, express, and hey, listen to me, this is what I'm trying to express, this is what I want you to hear, but also the questions of, you know, how do you feel? And how can I best support you? Because we can talk about for hours of what some of the different support strategies are, but everybody's actually going to prefer something different. And this is very much dependent on your wiring, right? How we've kind of grown up, what our attachment style is, whether we're securely attached, anxious, or avoidant, or whether we're an introvert or an extrovert, or this other concept of donor and acceptor that I think is also very interesting. And so each person is going to have their own preference. And if you ask your partner how they'd like to be supported, you listen. Sometimes this means giving them space. And other times this means being right there beside them in whatever process they're going through.
Yeah. Yeah. As you said, I just went back to my journey. I had my partner. So it was very comforting. It was painful. It was haunting, but there was always somebody to fall back. There was always someone who would hold my hands and say that it's okay, we will sail through this. So it was never like you will sail through this. It was more of we will sail through this. So the language in itself mattered a lot here. So yeah, that gives a lot of confidence to your partner. So it's very, very important that the kind of language that we use with the partner makes the whole lot of difference. The tone, the words, not making them feel small about any these things, not making or consider them as a weak person or not the gender worth. All these things should be avoided.
Yeah, beautifully said. I love that piece of guidance there, that tip around using we, right? We are going through this as a team, and I'm not giving up on us. It's not about I'm not giving up on you. I mean, that could be powerful in some ways, but I'm not giving up on us. This is something that we're going to work through together. And language creates reality. I think we had chatted about this last time. A teacher of mine had said, you know, that's why it's called spelling, because it casts spells.
Right.
And just like the language in a relationship, the language that we associate to ourselves also around what often gets used, right, of I have a sexual dysfunction. That is incredibly, incredibly damaging. Vaginismus to be viewed as a dysfunction is actually creating an identity for ourselves that we are dysfunctional, we're broken, we need to be fixed. And when we create this identity, we're actually marrying ourselves to this concept of dysfunction, rather than what I would invite people to do is see yourself as this entity here, see vaginismus as this body response right here that is actually separate from you, right? You don't have vaginismus and it doesn't own you. It is something that you're experiencing. And this word that I like to use of it's something you're experiencing is so key, because this also gives us the idea that it's not a lifelong experience, that there's a beginning to it and there's an end to it, like most experiences in life, and that it's going to pass, both with giving it time, but also engaging in this intentional healing.
Yeah, nicely put. That intentional healing was a very right word, that we need to consciously work towards it. At the same time, set your boundaries where it needs to make us presence and where you need to let loose it, right? That is something that has to be a very intentional, conscious healing that we need to do, so that it doesn't make you mentally weak. That's something, it's an important part of this journey of healing. So, what would you like to tell people who are going through this, the women who are going through this, having tough times in their partnership, lack of support from their partner? What do we do? What do we want to tell those women?
Well, lack of support from their partner could be a whole other particular type of advice. But what would I want to tell all women who are experiencing this is that there is hope, and there are some days where it feels like there's no way. There is no way that I'm ever going to overcome this. I remember having those thoughts. Also the thoughts of why me? Why me? Why me? Right? And this sort of victim mentality that is okay to indulge in as part of the process, right? You mentioned mental weakness, and mental weakness in the way of framing that too is simply part of it. There will be really hard days where you feel like there's no hope. Something that some people that I work with, especially in the current group, had mentioned really stuck with them. I think there was two of them that said, you know, I remember Katrin saying that there was a part in her process, in her journey, where she could not see herself having pleasurable penetrative sex. This was just not part of her reality. Yeah. And it gave them a sense of reassurance that I was also there in this experience of, I'm never going to overcome this. I'm not even made for sex. Sex is not going to be part of my reality. Because remember, when we feel like we will never be able to have penetrative sex, we also start to disassociate from other forms of intimacy, other forms of sex, because they are a reminder of what we cannot yet do. And so we back away from things like even kissing, holding hands, hugging, because we're afraid of where it's going to lead. So my image of myself was, well, maybe I'm designed to just be an incredibly successful businesswoman, corporate world all the way. I'm going to climb that ladder. And I guess I'm not going to have a family unless I choose to adopt. But how am I even going to find a partner who wants to be with me without having penetrative sex? And just so you know, those partners are beautifully out there, and there's no harm, no shame in feeling like that is what you deserve, a partner who chooses not to have penetrative sex. That's also beautiful. That's what you choose to look for. And there are people out there who are going to love you unconditionally regardless. But having all those thoughts go through my head and knowing where I am today just shows that it is possible, even if on days you feel like you're at the brink of giving up, that hope is going to come back, that spark of inspiration is going to come back, and you can take one step at a time to get to where you want to be.
Yeah, one step at a time. And you're not alone in this. There are a lot of women out there who are going through, because whenever there is a trouble, we feel, why me, only me, and I'm alone in this. Nobody can feel no, there are a lot of women who go through this, and a lot of women are having their own healing journey. So I would like to say that there are a lot of resources out there who can help you out. And a lot of people are part of this journey. Silently, somewhere, someone or the other is working towards it. So hold on. I think we will get through this. We'll get through this. Definitely, we will get through this. So, Katrin, let us know how people can connect with you. What do you do? What do you offer for us? What do you offer for people who are going through this? how can they actually be in touch with you? So that I want a lot of people to connect with you. They shouldn't think this is something that's so personal and I cannot talk to anybody. So tell us.
Yeah, of course. Well, people can click right on this interview and get to my Instagram page, which is Pain Free and Intimate. And there's a slew of resources and real stories from people who are experiencing this right now. I share all the time on my Instagram stories in particular. The number one go-to would be actually getting my free course. And this I've
Okay.
called Putting Vaginismus in the Past. So there is 6 hours of video guidance in there. I did a master class at the beginning of this year that I've included in this free course where we explore 3 pillars: the emotional healing journey, finding and embracing your authentic sexual self, which was an incredibly fun conversation, and last and definitely not least, the physical healing journey. But I say last because really emotional always comes first. This is foundational to this work. And so people can get this free course when I'll hook them up or heading to my website, which is linked in my Instagram bio. So 6 hours of video with me. It was a live sort of experience, and there were people watching there. So we had a communication the entire time. And very often this kind of sparks the hope for people of like, wow, I'm really not alone. There's other women out there, other vulva owners who are going through the exact same thing. And there's a lot of practical guidance in there also.
Wow. That was amazing session, Katrin. I think it was worth the long time due that we have been postponing it. I don't know. I think from December we've been talking about this topic, and
Yeah.
finally today, and it was so nice. It's always nice whenever I talk to you, not just in live, but also in DMs. We have so much of conversations, and it feels really good. And you're doing an amazing work. You have so much of knowledge, but having knowledge is one part of the coin, but the other part of the coin is making that impact. And that is beautifully seen in your stories, in the relationship that you're building with your clients, in the relationship that you're changing people's lives, their relationships. Amazing work, Catherine. So proud of you, and also happy to come across a person like you, actually. Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. And the exact same goes to you. Thank you for exploring these topics that are so pivotal in relationships and our sense of self-worth. I love that, you're a relationship, marriage, expert coach, and you're recognizing that there is very niche pieces of challenges and pains that are worth talking about, right? Sometimes putting in the effort and the time to explore these ones might be perceived as, that's not relevant for most people, but each person is important. And so I see the value that you bring on such a specific level. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Katrin. Catch you some other day on some other topic, but definitely we'll be in touch on our DMs. Thank you. Have a great day. All the best. Bye-bye.
You too. Have a good night. Bye.
Bye. Bye.